here is a broken instrument. I'm using both pecking and pulsing motion at the same time. Like this. I don't hear the sound. It's very strange. Oh, here, yeah, I can hear the sound. So now I have a secondary fracture. So let me go back. So if you keep using pecking and pulsing motion at the same time, you can prevent the breakage. However, I'm going to stop pecking and pulsing motion now. Now I stop pecking and pulsing. Then you will fracture the instrument. And if you do that, if you do the same, you will break the tip. This time, I will break the tip. So I'm now using pecking and pulsing at the same time. Every half second, I activate ultrasonics, and the next half second, I deactivate ultrasonics. But if you stop that, you will break it. Here, it's broken. So simply, you have to use both pecking and pulsing motion to prevent the breakage. It's not difficult unless you stop using pecking and pulsing motion. You will not break it. And there are some drawbacks in the use of ultrasonics. First, never activate ultrasonics on the top of the broken instrument. You will end up pushing the broken instrument into periapical tissues. This was an old case, 1998, when I was working for the university. My boss told me to use ultrasonics to remove this instrument. However, at that time, I had no idea. I was very stupid. And I simply broke the escaping space. Then, the next second, I found the broken instrument extruding into the periapical tissue. However, if you keep activating ultrasonics on the side of the broken instrument, you will have the secondary fracture. Never trough around the broken instrument. You will have a secondary fracture. Of course, many people support this theory, but this theory is completely wrong. Because if you keep troughing around, the broken instrument will receive all the energy generated with ultrasonics. Then you will have the secondary fracture. Then you have another issue, requiring more time to remove the rest of the fragment. So let me quickly show you how I fractured the instrument by troughing around the broken instrument. Here you see the broken instrument. I'm now troughing around the broken instrument, counterclockwise. Then, in a few seconds, the instrument fractured again. So never trough around the broken instrument. Even in a plastic block, you will see the same. If you trough around the broken instrument, then you will see it separated like this. So never trough around the broken instrument. So that's why I did this study to find how to fracture the broken instrument. When you activate ultrasonics with denting wall, without any denting wall behind the broken instrument, the mean fracture time was 15.9 seconds in this group. However, when you activate ultrasonics with denting wall behind the broken instrument, the mean secondary fracture time was 232 seconds. There was a significant difference between this group and this group. So in order to prevent the instrument fracture, the secondary fracture, you have to apply ultrasonics where you have denting wall behind it. Very important. What about the broken instrument around the car? Like 30 degrees or 45 degrees. If you apply ultrasonics where you have denting wall behind the broken instrument around the car, the mean secondary fracture time for this group was 444 seconds. And next one for this group was 438 seconds. There was a significant difference between this group and this group because the energy coming from ultrasonics will be transmitted to the denting wall behind the broken instrument. That's why the broken instrument didn't receive all the energy generated with ultrasonics. The broken instrument received the energy, then release the energy to the root canal wall behind it. So that's why it took more time before the secondary fracture happens when the broken instrument is around the curve, 30 degrees or 45 degrees. But when the curvature is 60 degrees, the mean secondary fracture time was 109 seconds because of the internal stress. I used nickel titanium instrument. So there was no difference between the 30-degree curvature and 45-degree curvature. However, there was a difference, significant difference between these two groups and the 60-degree curvature group because of the internal stress. So from this study, from the results of this study, I suggest you not trough around the broken instrument. Always activate ultrasonics where you have denting wall behind it. Always activate ultrasonics from the inner wall around the curve. When the curvature exceeds 60 degrees, you have 109 seconds before the secondary fracture occurs. So these are the findings from this study. In addition to that, if you generate too much heat, the instrument will become susceptible to fracture. Like this, I used a brand new nickel titanium instrument. Then I apply ultrasonics to this brand new instrument. This is a new instrument. Oh, sorry, let me go back. So here, so when you apply ultrasonics, here in a dry condition, the instrument will fracture in 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, right? How could you possibly fracture the new instrument in 3 seconds? But with ultrasonics, this will happen. You can be very, very aggressive with ultrasonics. However, if you put it in water and do the same, like this, it will be completely different. Because the temperature in water will not exceed 100 degrees. In addition to the temperature, the water will work as a buffer because the water will reduce the cyclic fatigue. So that's why the new instrument didn't break in 3 seconds, but it will break in 32 seconds. So if you keep activating ultrasonics on the instrument, look at this. So now the instrument broke in 32 seconds. So this is the difference. So that's why, according to the study done by Marcus Papasaro in Canada, he discovered as the temperature goes up, the more susceptible the instrument becomes to fracture. So look at them. If you look at the group here, 0 degrees, and if you look at this group at 60 degrees, they all fractured less than 1,000 cycles. But if you look at the group with 0 degrees, you see some of the instrument fractured after 2,500 cycles. So temperature will dispose, higher temperature will dispose the broken instrument to fracture. So you have to be careful not to raise the temperature during the procedure to prevent the secondary fracture. In addition to that, if you raise the temperature maybe 10 degrees above the body temperature for more than 1 minute, you will end up damaging the PDL. I covered the root with utility wax, whose melting point is 66 degrees. So this means if you see the wax melting, that means the temperature on the root surface is more than 66 degrees. So 30 degrees higher than the body temperature. So in this case, you are damaging the PDL. So let's see how quickly you raise the temperature up to 66 degrees with ultrasonics. So I'm going to apply ultrasonics inside the root canal. This is the ultrasonic tip. Now I'm activating ultrasonics. 3 seconds, 5 seconds. See, look at this area. Pay attention to this area. You see the wax melting, meaning the temperature on the root surface is more than 66 degrees. You are damaging the PDL. So you can quickly raise the temperature to 66 degrees in less than 5 seconds with ultrasonics. So that's why you should not anesthetize the patient. If you use ultrasonics and if you anesthetize the patient will not feel any pain, even the PDL is damaged. It's not good. Actually, this case reports that the tooth was extracted because of the thermal damage to the PDL. The dentist was trying to remove the metal post from this tooth. He was successful in removing the metal post. But the next day, the tooth was extracted because of the thermal damage to the PDL here. This is the tooth extracted from here. Look at the roots. There's no PDL in the apical, in the coronal 1/3 and in the middle 1/3 because of the damage done by the heat, higher temperature. So if you have had if you had anesthetized the patient, this would not have happened. Oh, sorry. If you had not anesthetized the patient, this would not have happened. So I want to keep telling you, never anesthetize the patient in the treatment. You don't know what's happening to the patient, especially when you use ultrasonics. You don't know how much temperature you are creating. And never touch the outer wall with ultrasonics, because there's nothing good about touching the outer wall. Probably, or most likely, you will end up creating a ledge on the outer wall. Once you created a ledge, it's so difficult to bypass the ledge. I fractured an instrument in the extracted tooth, and I cut it in half. I found this. This image is very famous because I put it in the pathways of the pulp. And if you look at the coronal part, you see the dentin wall holding the broken instrument. However, if you look at the apical 1/3 and the middle 1/3, there are no dentinal walls holding or touching the broken instrument. So you see free spaces around here. So in this case, if you want to remove the instrument, all you have to do is create small space on the inner wall here. Then you can free the instrument. This is another case. Somebody broke the instrument in a plastic block. And she took it to me, and I took a picture under the microscope. And I found spaces from here to here, this level. You see the space between the outer, between the inner wall and the broken instrument. But there was no space around the coronal 1/3. So that's why if you create a tiny space here on the inner wall, you can free the broken instrument. And this study shows the highest stress concentration only in the coronal 1/3. If you look at the outer wall of the instrument, you see the highest stress concentration, because the red color represents the highest stress concentration. So you see the highest stress concentration on the outer wall. If you look at the inner wall, you see yellow. Yellow is maybe the third highest stress concentration. So that's why you should not touch the outer wall. You will break it compared to the inner wall. Always create a space on the inner wall. Okay, very important. And this is another reason why you should push it from the inner wall. Because if you push it from the outer wall, you will end up pushing the broken instrument into an apical direction. If you push it from the inner wall, the instrument will go up in a coronal direction. So let me give you an example. This is a very typical case. The broken instrument is already dancing. However, I keep pushing the instrument from the outer wall, not inner wall. As you can see, the instrument is dancing, but it won't come out. No matter how many times I push it from the outer wall, it will not come out. However, if you push it from the inner wall, it will be completely different, like this. This is a big difference. So that's why it's very important to make a treatment plan based on the finding using CBCT. You don't know which wall is considered inner wall. So that's why locate the inner wall using the CBCT, especially with axial view. What about the fluid? What kind of fluid is good to remove the instrument or loosen the instrument? Viscosity, low viscosity and low surface tension increase the ability of the fluid to penetrate into small anatomical spaces. So you should use a fluid with low viscosity because you can get into small anatomical spaces. For example, the space between the broken instrument and the canal wall. So I looked into many studies on viscosity using the vegetable oil. So viscosity of soybean oil is significantly lower than other oils. If you look at this study,
dung dịch có độ nhớt thấp.
there are many studies in different fields. However, if there is no viscosity, there will be no kinetic energy. So you need some viscosity to push the instrument physically. So if you use silicone oil, look at this silicone oil. Silicone oil has the lowest viscosity
Dầu gì đó?
in here.
Dầu gì?
Water has more viscosity than silicone oil, including EDTA. But if you look at the soybean oil has more viscosity than water or alcohol or EDTA. So when you have a broken instrument around the car, maybe 30 degrees or more, I want to use soybean oil because I need more push. I need more energy to push the instrument from the outer wall. So this is how I use soybean oil. What about the silicone oil?
Độ nhớt thấp.
Silicone oil is characterized by
Thấp là dầu độ.
low viscosity, actually lowest viscosity, and low surface tension, and excellent lubricity. So when do you use silicone oil? You should not use silicone oil in removal
Dầu
attempts,
silicone.
but you should use silicone oil in preparation, especially the curvature is more than 30 degrees, because silicone oil will get into small spaces, anatomical spaces, between the root canal wall and the broken instrument. I need this to loosen the instrument. There are two conditions for preparation and for broken file removal attempts. In the dry condition, you have to see it. So that's why you have to be in a dry condition to see the broken instrument. If you don't see it, it's not predictable. However, there are drawbacks in a dry condition. As I told you, you can easily generate heat. When the temperature goes up, the broken instrument will become more susceptible to fracture. And you can damage the PDL when the temperature goes 10 degrees above the body temperature for more than 1 minute. If it's 60 degrees, that will happen in a shorter time, less than 1 minute. So you have to be careful. That's why you have to use both pecking and pulsing motion at the same time to prevent the damage to PDL or secondary fracture. But once you saw the instrument dancing, now it's time to go to the broken file removal attempt.
Kim dung.
In a wet condition, you can take advantage of cavitation and acoustic streaming here. Because with cavitation and acoustic streaming, you can easily remove the broken instrument. For example, here, this is a dancing instrument. It's already dancing. I'm going to simply irrigate the root canal with water. So irrigation is already powerful. Look at this. I'm not using ultrasonics. I'm just irrigating the canal with water. So irrigation with water is already powerful in a small space like a root canal. And also, here, I'm going to show you cavitation. Cavitation will create turbulence inside the root canal. So you can be more powerful moving water, flowing water. So that's why when you are ready for removal attempts, you should put water inside, or you should put fluid inside, like a soybean oil or EDTA, depending on the curvature. For example, this is a curvature 35 degrees, and you have a broken instrument around it, around the car. If you use EDTA, it will not come out. But if you use soybean oil, it will come out. That's the difference between EDTA and soybean oil. So this is the broken instrument, as you can see. I put EDTA inside, then I'm going to activate ultrasonics from the inner wall, like this. But look, the instrument stays in the same place. it didn't move an inch. Then I'm replacing EDTA with soybean oil. And I will do the same. But this time, look, because of the lubricity, instrument just came out. It's not there anymore. So from these studies, my conclusion is this. When the curvature is more than 30 degrees, you need to use soybean oil. In other words, you need to make removal attempts with ultrasonics in the presence of soybean oil. When the curvature is less than 30 degrees, use EDTA to get the instrument out. Very simple. So now I want to talk about key preparation techniques for instrument retrieval. So we are going to use TFRK or whatever you have. With ultrasonics, you can remove, in general, 80% of the broken instrument. So if you open the box, you find many instruments here. So first, you have three kinds of ultrasonic tips. One is straight ultrasonic tip, TFRKS. The other two have flat surface, here and here. If you see the flat surface this way, horizontally, I call this katana edge. Katana means a sword in Japanese. So if you see the flat surface like this, horizontal, we call this katana edge. But if you see the flat surface vertically, we call that katana B. Okay? So there are three kinds of ultrasonic tips. 1, 2, 3. In addition to these ultrasonic tips, you have number 3 modified GG bar, and you have 60O2 nickel titanium instrument in the magnetic phase. And you have micro tritime bar to expose the coronal portion of the broken instrument. And you have the brownie. The brownie is used to sharpen the tip when it's broken or when it gets bigger. And we have 2 hand instruments, sorry, 3 instruments including the loop. We have micro explorer. We will use it to locate the original canal or the broken instrument beyond the curvature. And we will use the GPR, garapature removal hand instrument to remove the garapature. There is a hook at the tip, delta cone. And we have the loop to grab the broken instrument and take it out. Actually, this is a retreatment kit. Removing the garapature, locating the original canal over the ledge, and removing the broken instrument. So when the tip, for example, TFRKS breaks, don't throw it away. You can keep using the same ultrasonic tip until it gets too short to use. So how do you sharpen it? Very simple. If you want to make it look like a TFRKS, all you have to do is reduce the diameter of the tip using the brownie. So like this. So this is the brownie. Use the side of the brownie and be parallel to the tip. What I'm doing is, I'm doing 360 degrees around the tip, reducing the diameter of the tip. If you keep doing this, then you will have sharp tip. Now it's pointy. So it goes from this much to this this much. What about the katana tip when it's broken? All you have to do is to flatten two sides, upper side and the lower side, for katana H. For the katana B, you have to flatten the right side and the left side. So let me show you how you can recreate katana tip when it's broken. First, I'm flattening the lower side, then upper side. If you keep doing this, you will have the sword, the katana. This is a little weapon. When I did a hands-on course in Germany, somebody brought me an apple, and he asked me to cut the apple with the katana tip. But I cut my skin by accident, and it was bleeding. So be careful when you use the katana tip. It is really a knife, very sharp object. Very careful. So this is 0.5 millimeter wide and 0.1 millimeter thick. It's very tiny little weapon to create 90-degree semicircular space. And this is what I use. I use number 3 GG bars to enlarge the canal in a funnel shape. When the curvature is more than 15 degrees, I would use 6002 high flex EDM. Then I will create a small space on the inner wall using TFRK or S or katana tape. And I will make a removal attempt using ultrasonics or the loop or the expand or shaper or other nickel titanium rotary instrument in the presence of silicone oil or soybean oil or EDTA. This is what I use. So the first step in preparation is to enlarge the canal to the broken instrument in a funnel shape. It's very important to create a funnel shape. When the curvature is less than 15 degrees, you can use GG bar, number 3 GG bar, and branch against the outer wall. Then you can see the instrument much better if you have the funnel shape. Then you will use the micro trifine bar rotating at 600 RPM counterclockwise. The inner diameter of the micro trifine bar is 0.5 millimeters. The outer diameter is 0.8 millimeters. Many people consider the micro trifine bar too much, too big. However, if you look at the conventional nickel titanium instrument, for example, pro taper next, the maximum flute diameter is 1.2 millimeters, which is larger than the micro trifine bar. So you are not destroying the tooth, even if you use the micro trifine bar. And any instrument smaller than 0.5 millimeters can be removed with the micro trifine bar. And it rotates counterclockwise. So whenever I do a hands-on workshop, anywhere, no matter where I do that, some of the participants usually say, oh my God, I removed the broken instrument. Actually, I had a hands-on course 3 days ago in India. And including myself, 5 participants came to me. I removed the broken instrument with a micro trifine bar because it was rotating counterclockwise. If the broken instrument is rotating counterclockwise, it goes up in a chrono direction and it will come out. So let me quickly show you how it happens. So you can use the micro 3 fiber before you go to the next step. This is number 3 GG bar. Then you will use the micro 3 fiber. By the way, you can watch this video on my YouTube. So it's rotating counterclockwise. After maybe 5 seconds, you get debris in the micro 3 fiber. So you need to irrigate the canal, you need to remove debris like this. I use the micro explorer and put it in the hole, then remove debris. Then you need to irrigate the canal again. Then rotate the micro 3 fiber counterclockwise at 600 RPM. 5 seconds, get out, remove debris, and irrigate the canal. And do the same, like this. Do you know how many times this video was played so far? It's 10 million times. Unbelievable. I'm a YouTuber. So this video played 10 million times. Then look at this. It's kind of rotating. The broken instrument is kind of rotating with a micro 3 fiber. Then I irrigate the canal. Then do the same. Look, it's rotating together with the micro 3 fiber. Then it came out with the micro 3 fiber. So you can kind of try this technique. If you are lucky, you can take the instrument out. When the curvature is more than 15 degrees, you have to use 6002 big nickel titanium instrument. Because if you use GG bar or the micro 3 fiber, when the curvature is more than 15 degrees, you will create a red, which is not good. So I will show you how I use the micro 3 fiber in this case. So here is the broken instrument around the curve. The curvature was 15 degrees. So you can still use the micro 3 fiber. So first, this is the micro 3 fiber. Place the micro 3 fiber over the broken instrument and rotate the micro 3 fiber at 600 RPM counterclockwise. And it's better to use EDTA because EDTA removes debris. So I'm going to spin it at 600 RPM counterclockwise to expose the coronal portion of the broken instrument. So 5 seconds, get out and remove debris and take a look. I use sodium hypochlorite followed by hydrogen peroxide because you can create bubbles like this. Bubbles will facilitate removal of debris. And I dry the canal with stroke foam. I don't use the paper point to dry the canal. So now, let's take a look. You see the coronal portion of the broken instrument is completely exposed. Now I'm going to create space on the inner wall, starting with the katana tip. The katana tip will help you create, create 90-degree semicircular space on the inner wall. Then I will extend the space to 180 degrees with a straight ultrasonic tape, TFRKF. then you will see that broken instrument is dancing. So now it's time to do the removal attempt. So the curvature is less than 30 degrees. I simply use PDTA. And it came out immediately here. So this is how you use the micro trifine bar. And looking at something big doesn't mean you have space to take out through the hole. For example, this is a keyhole. You can see the big elephant through the keyhole. But that doesn't mean you can bring the big elephant through the keyhole. Okay? So looking at is completely different from removing something. So in order to facilitate the removal, the broken file removal, you have to have the funnel shape. Because if you don't have the funnel shape, like a parallel shape, the flow speed will be decreased toward the exit. Look, this is the exit, and this is the orifice, but orifice is smaller than the root canal inside. That's why even if you see instrument dancing, but it won't come out. However, here you see the funnel shape. This is the funnel shape. Then, if you activate ultrasonics, it came out immediately. You must have the funnel shape. Many people do not do this because I have many tens of hundreds of hands-on courses on the same subject, broken file removal. But the majority, when I find them not successful, they didn't have the funnel shape. Those who were successful have funnel shape. So that means unless you create the funnel shape, you will not be successful. Very important step. Okay, very important. How do you know you have the funnel shape? Very simple. Trace the canal walls under the microscope without changing its position to see if you can see all the walls to the broken instrument. For example, if you have the preparation like this, and if you don't see the canal wall from the microscope, it's not good. You don't have the funnel shape. In that case, you need brush against the outer wall using the number 3 GG bar, gauge, grid and driller. Then, if you can see all the canal walls down to the broken instrument, you do have the funnel shape. And there are very famous ultrasonic tips, including ET25 from Sadelek. This tip is one of the most commonly used ultrasonic tips to remove the broken instrument. However, there are some drawbacks in the use of ET25. Because first, the taper of ET25 is too big, 3%. And the tip size of ET25 is 0.3 millimeters, which is considered too big to be minimally invasive. And the instructions tell you to trough around the broken instrument, which is a big mistake. So if you trough around the broken instrument with the ET25, you will end up losing 0.6 millimeter diameter denting. Big mistake. But if you use TFRKS with 1% taper, the tip diameter of the TFRKS is 0.1 millimeters. And if you just create semicircular space on the inner wall, you just created very tiny space. This is all you need to remove the broken instrument compared to this big loss of denting. So The reason why you should not use the tip with a big taper is this. If you try to create a space on the inner wall, you will first touch the broken instrument and push it in an apical direction without getting into the space on the inner wall. However, if you use small size ultrasonic tip with 1% taper, you can easily get into the space on the inner wall without pushing the broken instrument in an apical direction. How do you know you are using small size ultrasonic tip? Simply place your ultrasonic tip into the space you created. And if you see the cross section of the broken instrument, you are using small size ultrasonic tip. However, if you see the cross section covered by your ultrasonic tip, you are not using small size ultrasonic tip. In this case, you have to use small size, or you have to reduce the diameter of the tip. And this study supports what I told you. From India, retrieval of broken instrument using TFRKS resulted in reduced mean root dentin removal with lesser mean time as compared to satellite ET25. So as long as you use small size tip, your removal time will be reduced and you will have less dentin sacrifice. And the next question is, how many walls are holding the broken instrument? If you have a broken instrument before the curvature, there are always 2 contact points holding the broken instrument. If you have a broken instrument around the curve and curvature more than 30 degrees, there will be 3 contact points holding the broken instrument. If it's beyond the curvature, there are always 2 contact points holding the broken instrument. So that it depends on the curvature. So when the curvature is more than 30 degrees and the broken instrument is around the curve, there are 3 contact points. If beyond the curvature, there are only 2 contact points, touching or holding the broken instrument. However, when the curvature is less than 30 degrees, even the broken instrument is around the curve, there are 2 contact points, only 2 contact points. So it's easier to remove the instrument when the curvature is less than 30 degrees because there are only 2 contact points. So this curvature is more than 30 degrees. As you can see, there are 3 contact points. Here, in preparation, you need to create a space on the inner wall, but the space must be extended beyond the midpoint of the instrument in order to remove 2 contact points. If you extend the space beyond the midpoint of the broken instrument, you will remove 2 contact points, this one and this one. You have only 1 contact point touching the broken instrument from the outer wall, that's all. Then you can easily see the instrument dancing. When the curvature is less than 30 degrees, there are only 2 contact points. You don't have to see the apical portion of the broken instrument. As I told you, root canal walls in the apical 1/3 or even the middle 1/3 are not touching the broken instrument. What we have to see is the coronal portion of the broken instrument. So when the curvature is less than 30 degrees, remember there are only 2 contact points. How deep you have to create a space on the inner wall? That is 1/3 of the broken file length. For example, when the broken instrument is 3 millimeters, you just need a space 1 millimeter on the inner wall. Okay, very simple. However, when the curvature is more than 30 degrees, first you need a drop of silicone oil. Not too much, because you have to see it. And remember, there are 3 contact points when the broken instrument is around the curve. In order to remove 2 contact points, you need to extend the space beyond the midpoint. For example, when the broken instrument is 6 millimeters, you need to extend the space to 3 millimeters, beyond 3 millimeters. Then you will see the instrument dancing. This is how you prepare the canal. So here, you need to create a space on the inner wall, starting with the katana tape. Then extend the space to 180 degrees with the TFRKS, the straight tip, until you see the instrument dancing. Very important. If you see the instrument dancing while creating the 90-degree semicircular space on the inner wall, that's it. You don't always have to create 180-degree semicircular space. As soon as you see the instrument dancing, that's the end of the preparation. But be careful about the depth of the preparation. Sometimes people are not watching the root canal walls very, very carefully. So I have hundreds of hands-on courses in 10 years. So every time when somebody has an issue, I go there and take a look under the microscope. There's always wall touching the broken instrument. That's why you still do not see the broken instrument dancing. So the space must be even. For example, you need to create 1 millimeter space. This is okay, but on the right side, this is not okay. This space must be 0.5 millimeter deep. It has to be removed. You will not see the instrument dancing if you have the wall still touching or holding the broken instrument from here. So now I'd like to move on to the removal attempts. Key predictable removal techniques. As I told you, when the curvature is 30 degrees and you create a space on the inner wall that is 1/3 of the broken file length, and you will see it dancing, then you are 10 seconds away from removing the broken instrument in the presence of EDTA. When the curvature is more than 30 degrees, what do you have to use in removal attempts? EDTA or water, alcohol, what do you have to use? Soybean oil, right? Yes, you said that. Soybean oil. So you need to make removal attempts in the presence of soybean oil when the curvature is more than 30 degrees. But be careful, there are some tips that you have to be aware of. When the space between the outer wall and your ultrasonic tip is smaller than the broken instrument, the broken instrument will not come out. When this space is wider than the broken instrument, it will of course come out. Always allow some space for the instrument to come out. And another one, when you make removal attempts, you have to keep some distance from the broken instrument. Do not do this. Do not push the broken instrument with your ultrasonic tip during removal attempts. Always stay away from the broken instrument. You need to let it go. Like this. Don't press the broken instrument. And you must have enough fluid, not only in the root canal, but also pulp chamber. If you have water only in the root canal, it will not come out to the pulp chamber. You will see it going up and down in the root canal space. So let me quickly show you an example. So make sure the instrument is dancing. You see it's dancing. Then I put water to the cable surface. Now I have enough water. It's flooding. Then I will make removal attempt. The instrument came out immediately. However, if you don't have enough water, maybe only in the root canal, it will not come out. Look, make sure the instrument is dancing. I'm using the same plastic probe and using the same probe instrument. This is in the same condition as the one that you previously saw. Then it's not enough water. The water is only filled in the root canal. So no matter how hard you activate ultrasonics, it won't come out. Look. It didn't come out. So you have to have water up to the cable surface. You need to have enough water so the instrument will swim to the pulp chamber. Or you can try stroke to get the instrument up. Because the instrument is already dancing, if you blow air into the root canal, you may see the instrument coming out. For example, I have a good typical case. Now preparation is finished. I blow air, then instrument comes out like this. When you make removal attempts, I want you to increase the power setting. It's okay to increase the power setting. Usually, when you do the preparation, you need to use the minimum power, starting with 1 on a scale from 1 to 10. Then, maybe you need to increase the power by 10% higher than the one you used in preparation. Because depth of ultrasonic activated fluid increases with increasing power setting to remove denting and pulpal debris, including broken instrument, apical to the ultrasonic tip. And if you spend more than 45 seconds, your success rate will drop because you are more tired than you think you are, according to this study. So remember, you don't have to finish the job in 1 minute. So take it easy, relax yourself. If it's more than 40 minutes, I always stop what I have been doing. So let me show you how you remove the instrument. This is a very typical case. First, what is the first thing you have to do? You have to make a diagnosis and you have to make a treatment plan based on the diagnosis. Then I decided to use ultrasonics after the preparation because the instrument was less than 3 millimeters. So the curvature doesn't matter when the broken instrument is less than 3 millimeters. Now I'm using number 2 GG bar because I wanted to be conservative. I'm brushing against the outer wall. This is outer wall and this is inner wall. I'm brushing the outer wall. Then you see debris. Every time you see debris, remove it. I use EDTA and ultrasonics. I agitate EDTA with ultrasonics. Then I use sodium hypochlorite followed by hydrogen peroxide. So that way you can very effectively remove debris. So this is sodium hypochlorite. Then this is hydrogen peroxide. Look at the bubble. Then I dry the canal with stroke. I don't use taper point. It takes lots of time. Then it's time to use the katana tip to create 90-degree semicircular space on the inner wall. This is the inner wall, this is the outer wall. Look, can you hear the sound? I'm using pecking and pulsing motion at the same time. Pulsing takes half second. So every half second, I activate ultrasonics. The next half second, I deactivate ultrasonics. I do not want to use continuous ultrasonic activation. Look, pecking and pulsing at the same time. Then I switch to TFRKS. Now you saw the instrument going from one place to another. It's dancing. Now it's time to make a removal attempt. I put EVTA, then I go back into the space I created and activate ultrasonics. I'm 10 seconds away from removing the instrument. It came out actually immediately. And this is the post-op. I always use MTA like this. And this is 3 months post-op showing nice periodical healing. However, when the broken instrument is longer than 4.5 millimeters, or the instrument didn't come out in 10 seconds with ultrasonics, you need to use a loop or the XP endo shaper or sometimes high flex EDM. So this is the loop. Now loop is improved. This is the new version. If the loop is broken, you don't have to buy the whole thing. We have lots of replacements. There are 2 kinds of wire loops. One is large, the other one is small. 0.1 millimeters for large, 0.08 millimeters for small. All you have to do is remove the head and replace the old one with a new one, and then put the head back. That's all you have to do. It takes only 40 seconds to replace the old loop with a new one. And there are 2 things that you have to do before you use the loop. Adjust the loop size and bend it to 45 degrees to facilitate the placement of the loop. So here, if you bend it to 90 degrees, which will take more room than when it is bent to 45 degrees. So it's better to bend it to 45 degrees to save the room. Once it lands on the broken instrument, it will push back to 90 degrees. Then you can tighten it and take it out. So the preparation protocol is the same, whether you use a loop or ultrasonics. Simply tighten the loop around the broken instrument and take it out. If you feel some resistance, don't force it out. Don't use your force. Just try several directions, like 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 12 o'clock. Then one of the directions will help you remove the broken instrument with a loop. However, if you see the broken instrument leaning against the outer wall, like this, you cannot place the loop. In this case, you have to use the XP endo shaper rotating clockwise, so you will make the broken instrument rotate counterclockwise. This is a cross-section of the XP endo shaper. This is the cross-section of the broken instrument. If you rotate the XP endo shaper this way, you will make the broken instrument rotate counterclockwise. if the broken instrument is rotating counterclockwise, it will go up in the chrono direction, and you will see it coming out. So this is how you remove the broken instrument when it's leaning against the outer wall. And you have to increase the speed because the DXP and the shaper has very small taper, 1%, and also the tip diameter is 0.15 millimeters, very small size. So that's why you need to increase the speed. Otherwise, you will break it. So I will use AI motor because you can increase the speed up to 2,500 RPM. I asked Woodpecker to increase the speed up to 3,000 RPM. So I hope they still consider the speed up to 3,000 RPM. So I will show you a good case using DXP and the shaper. You see the broken instrument, actually two instruments. One is small, the other one is longer. This one was 5.31 millimeters around the curve, and you see the big perforation here. And I found the broken instrument leaning against the outer wall, so I was not able to use the loop. So that's why I used the XP and the shaper and took it out. The preparation is the same, so I will skip the preparation part. Then, first, I will use oil. I always use oil, silicone oil, in preparation. Then, when I see the instrument dancing, it's time to do the removal attempts. So this is the XP and the shaper going in up and down. Then the instrument came up like this. You have to always go down along the inner wall because you see the big perforation. As long as you go down along the inner wall, you will not reach the perforation. So I always stay on the inner wall, so I don't touch the perforation. I fill the root canals with MTA and also the perforation site here. So this is a good advantage because if you don't use garapature and sealer, you can fill the spaces with MTA, including the perforation and the root canals. Now the tooth became asymptomatic after I removed the broken instrument and filled the defects, including the perforation here. But there are some cases where you cannot create the space on the inner wall, or by accident you created the space on the outer wall or around it. In that case, you have to use a different technique. You can use just rotary instrument. Because if you use ultrasonics from the outer wall, do you know what will happen? You will end up pushing the broken instrument in an apical direction. So if you ever created the space on the outer wall, other than the inner wall, you cannot use ultrasonics. You will not remove the instrument with ultrasonics when the space is on the outer wall. So you need to use rotary instrument, rotary file. As long as you use rotary file, you will not push the instrument in an apical direction. For example, here, I have many cases, but I don't think I have time. It's already 3 o'clock. So if you here, let me show you the video. Seeing the video is easier to understand. So I'm going to use small size rotary instrument. Just imagine there is no space on the inner wall. What I'm doing right here is I'm creating a space around the broken instrument, especially on the outer wall. You need oil when the instrument is spinning at higher speed. So this is actually silicone oil. So now I'm creating a space here. You see, the tip of the instrument is here. The rotary instrument is here. So I'm creating a space on the outer wall because the nickel titanium instrument wants to go to the outer wall. The rotary instrument will not stay on the inner wall unless you use ultrasonics. Then I'm going to use 25 04 08 high flex EDM. I use up and down motion. Now I'm making the broken instrument rotate counterclockwise. That's why it's coming out in the coronal direction. This is how you remove the broken instrument. If you have a broken instrument outside the root canal, if it's a closed space, you can still get instrument out. Because if you create negative pressure using, for example, piezo flow, you can get instrument out. Here, this is the broken instrument. Then I activate ultrasonics. You see, here, it's coming out like this. Or you can use DXP end finisher. If you spin it at higher speed, you will create negative pressure. So that's why even the broken instrument is outside the root canal. If it's a closed space, you can get the instrument out by using DXP end finisher rotating at higher speed. So let me quickly show you how you can remove the instrument. So this is a broken instrument already outside the root canal. First, enlarge the canal to the broken instrument. This is a large size nickel titanium instrument. Then I'm going to use the XP end finisher. This is the XP end finisher. Now I'm spinning at 2,500 RPM. I'm creating a negative pressure, then it's coming out. Like this. There are many techniques that you can use. Do you think this is not real? Yes, it is real. I always use this technique when I see the instrument outside the root canal. For example, here, you see the instrument is completely outside, but I did remove this instrument non-surgically. I use the piezo flow, then I use the XP end finisher. Now the instrument is coming back into the root canal. I rotate it at higher speed, 2,500 RPM, using the AI motor. This is the XP end finisher. Now it came out. You see this video on my YouTube, so I don't want to spend time showing this. And this is the post-op. This is post-op, you see. I can stay minimally invasive because I'm not removing any denting. So I think it's time to take a break, right? Okay. So we take 20 minutes.